Ukraine's civilian power plants have been attacked, in particular, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant that was attacked on March 3rd, 2022, just as the Russian forces were moving up from Crimea. It was attacked by military forces with tanks and heavy armor and artillery, and was taken over and is still being occupied to this day by the Russian forces. Likewise, Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which is luckily not operational, so it does not produce nuclear power, electricity, but it still is the site of many tons of nuclear material. That was also taken over by the Russian forces in February and March 2022 until they withdrew at the end of March. Why did Russia attack nuclear facilities? Partially, it seems it was just these facilities were in the way of the Russian path towards whatever their targets were. For instance, Chernobyl nuclear power plant is right on the border with Belarus and was on the way of the Russian advance from Belarus to the capital city of Kyiv. And once those forces withdrew, they also withdrew from the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was somewhat of a different story. It was, again, part of the occupied territory. The forces moved in there, although the plant still worked for some time, producing electricity for Ukraine until it was shut down in September 2022. Since then, Russia basically grabbed and occupied this asset, terrorized the Ukrainian operating staff. There's a really grave situation with Ukrainian nuclear operators that was created by the presence of Russian nuclear forces. And it has been using it as a shield for mounting artillery barrages onto Ukrainian positions, knowing full well that Ukrainians cannot retaliate because they don't want to be shooting at a nuclear facility. So the Russians have used this nuclear power plant as a sort of military tool since they took it over. Another risk that Russians created against the Ukrainian power plants was the general attack against Ukrainian power grid and critical infrastructure. So nuclear plants need electricity. They not only produce electricity, they actually critically need electricity to power their cooling systems and keep the nuclear fuel cool enough and withdraw heat to prevent it from overheating and melting and causing an accident. Now, when you disable the country's grid and cause an all-out blackout, such as the Russians did in November 2022, and are causing now with their missile attacks against Ukrainian power generating facilities, that endangers, not only the power supply generally to the population, but the safe operation of the other nuclear power plants that operate on Ukraine's territory. The Russians have caused quite worrying and terrible risks to these facilities, but also to people who operate them.